The relentless drumbeat of disaster echoes across the Golden State. Los Angeles, a city synonymous with sunshine and dreams, finds itself drowning in a nightmare. As families across America gather for Christmas celebrations, millions of Californians are confronting a brutal reality: their holiday shattered, replaced by desperate fight for survival. What began as ominous weather warnings has violently escalated into one of the most perilous natural disasters to strike Southern California during the festive season in decades, an event that will forever redefine the very notion of a holiday emergency. The timing, an almost cruel twist of fate, could not be worse. A colossal atmospheric river, a phenomenon scientists describe as a veritable fire hose of moisture originating from the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, has chosen Christmas week to unleash its unbridled fury. This isn't merely rain, it's a meteorological monster, combining multiple deadly elements into a catastrophic event that is forcing a re-evaluation of emergency preparedness and resilience in an increasingly volatile climate. This system, fueled by warmer ocean temperatures, carries an extraordinary volume of water vapor, far exceeding typical winter storms, making its impact inherently more destructive. Tuesday night marked the terrifying genesis of what meteorologists are now unequivocally calling an unprecedented weather assault. At precisely 9:00 p.m., the vanguard of this monstrous storm system made landfall, crashing into Santa Barbara with rainfall rates that frankly stunned even the most seasoned weather experts. The sheer volume of water, delivered with such intensity, immediately signaled a crisis. By the stroke of midnight, Los Angeles, a sprawling metropolis, was unequivocally under siege. The rain did not simply fall. It hammered down with an intensity that violently transformed urban streets into raging rivers and tranquil hillsides into deadly avalanches of mud and debris. The terrifying reality here is profound. Southern California, a region accustomed to prolonged periods of drought, is now receiving what would normally constitute several months of rainfall in less than 24 hours. The statistics are staggering, almost dystopian. Some areas are recording an astonishing 9 inches of rain, a stark contrast to the typical December total of just 2 to 3 inches. This isn't gradual accumulation, a gentle soak. This is a deluge of biblical proportions, battering a landscape utterly incapable of absorbing such a cataclysmic volume. In a rare and grave move, the Weather Prediction Center issued something they reserve for only the most dire circumstances: a Level 4 high-risk warning, their highest possible alert level. This designation appears on only a minuscule 4% of days throughout the entire year. Yet these exceptionally rare days are tragically responsible for a third of all flood deaths and a shocking 80% of total flood damage nationwide. When weather professionals deploy their most extreme warnings, it's an undeniable signal that the situation has crossed into truly existential, dangerous territory. The cries of "Let's go home," from parents to their children, captured in fleeting moments, underscore the desperation, the primal instinct to escape, even as the very concept of home becomes a fragile, threatened ideal. But here, this unfolding tragedy takes an even darker, more insidious turn. The devastating Palisades and Eaton wildfires, which raged earlier in January, left behind what experts grimly refer to as burn scars. These are expansive areas where the intense, searing heat of the inferno has literally baked the soil into an impermeable, concrete-like surface. These scars have fundamentally transformed entire hillsides into colossal, natural water slides. Instead of dutifully absorbing rainfall like a sponge, as healthy soil should, the hardened, compromised ground now channels water into devastating, fast-moving torrents, carrying with it a lethal cocktail of mud, rocks, and debris at speeds capable of sweeping away cars, homes, and lives in a matter of seconds. The physics underpinning this disaster are brutally simple, yet the consequences are utterly devastating. Normal soil possesses the remarkable capacity to absorb significant amounts of water, acting as nature's crucial buffer against the ravages of flooding. However, fire-scarred earth actively repels water, functioning like a solid, unyielding sheet of concrete. When rain impacts these vulnerable areas at rates exceeding 1 inch per hour, precisely what is happening now, the water has no escape route but sideways and relentlessly downhill, gathering terrifying speed and indiscriminately picking up everything in its path. In a testament to the severity of the threat, Los Angeles police officers spent Tuesday in a grim, door-to-door campaign, personally warning residents in the most vulnerable neighborhoods that staying put could very well mean certain death. These were not routine precautions. These were desperate, last-ditch attempts to preserve human life before the worst of the storm arrived. Evacuation warnings now blanket vast areas previously affected by the Palisades, Sunset, and Woolsey fires, with authorities extending the critical danger period through Thursday night, urging vigilance and immediate action. The human cost of this disaster is profoundly heartbreaking. Families who had meticulously planned joyous Christmas gatherings are instead fleeing their homes, clutching whatever meager possessions they can carry. Children who, in a different world, would be eagerly opening presents are instead watching their parents frantically pack emergency supplies, their faces etched with fear and confusion. The airports have devolved into scenes of chaos, with flights canceled en masse and countless travelers stranded, their holiday plans dissolving into despair. The highways, typically bustling with festive holiday traffic, have become treacherous death traps, where visibility plunges to zero in an instant, and flash floods can materialize without warning, turning asphalt into raging rivers. This immediate disruption to daily life and the festive season carries with it a hidden psychological toll, sowing seeds of anxiety and trauma that will linger long after the floodwaters recede. Adding yet another layer of existential danger to this already critical situation, hurricane-force winds are savagely battering the entire state. Mountainous areas are experiencing terrifying gusts up to 70 miles per hour, powerful enough to effortlessly topple mature trees, snap sturdy power lines, and transform everyday debris into deadly projectiles. Even coastal cities like Los Angeles, San Francisco, and San Diego face punishing wind gusts reaching 50 miles per hour. These are not merely inconvenient breezes. They are powerful, destructive forces capable of knocking over high-profile vehicles and rendering driving virtually impossible, exacerbating the already perilous conditions on roads and highways. The chilling statistic of at least 17 lives lost across California underscores the multifaceted threat posed by these heavy rains and winds striking simultaneously. Nearly the entire state is under various flood watches and warnings, a grim blanket of uncertainty. The infrastructure impact is nothing short of catastrophic and continues to escalate with every passing hour. Power grids are failing systemically as winds tear down lines and extensive flooding short-circuits transformers. Thousands upon thousands of homes have already lost electricity, plunging families into darkness during what should be a time of festive light and warmth. Cell towers are struggling desperately to maintain service as their backup batteries drain and crucial equipment succumbs to the relentless assault. The very systems people rely on for emergency information, communication, and basic connection are crumbling under nature's overwhelming force. This vulnerability highlights a critical failing in modern infrastructure design, often ill-equipped to handle such extreme, concurrent stresses. This storm embodies something meteorologists term a compound disaster. Multiple distinct hazards striking simultaneously, creating impacts far more devastating than any single threat could achieve alone. The rain, by itself, would be dangerous. The wind, in isolation, would inflict significant damage. The burn scars, on their own, create an inherent vulnerability to mudslides, but combined, they form a perfect, nightmarish recipe for catastrophe, overwhelming every defense system California has painstakingly put in place over decades. This synergy of destruction multiplies the challenges for emergency responders and significantly complicates recovery efforts. Governor Gavin Newsom has responded by mobilizing the state's entire emergency apparatus, a clear recognition of the existential threat. The California National Guard stands ready, equipped with vital rescue helicopters and specialized high-water vehicles. Emergency shelters are rapidly opening across the region, though many are already approaching capacity, a testament to the sheer scale of displacement. First responders are being strategically prepositioned in critical locations, understanding that once the worst of the storm truly hits, reaching victims may become an impossible, heartbreaking task. The economic toll is already mounting, projected into the billions of dollars. Holiday shopping, the lifeblood of retail businesses, has ground to an abrupt halt, stripping away crucial end-of-year revenue. Restaurants meticulously prepared for bustling Christmas dinner crowds are instead boarding up windows, their investments in perishable goods now a total loss. Hotels that should be brimming with visiting families are evacuating guests, turning festive stays into hurried departures. The ripple effects of this profound economic disruption will be felt for months, perhaps even years, as businesses struggle desperately to recover from losses incurred during their most vital, profitable season. Beyond immediate damage, the cost of disrupted commerce, lost wages, and delayed shipments will ripple through the regional and potentially national economy. But beyond the immediate danger and financial fallout lies an even more troubling and undeniable reality. California's weather patterns have become increasingly extreme, swinging wildly, almost schizophrenically between periods of severe, prolonged drought and devastating, destructive floods. This acute volatility creates a vicious, self-perpetuating cycle of destruction. Drought conditions allow vegetation to grow dense and become bone-dry, creating perfect, abundant fuel for massive wildfires. These fires, in turn, create the very burn scars that then, inevitably, transform into treacherous flood zones when the next atmospheric river arrives. Each disaster tragically sets the stage for the next, trapping California in an escalating, relentless pattern of destruction from which there seems no immediate escape. Climate scientists have issued dire warnings about this precise scenario for years, their predictions now unfolding with chilling accuracy. Warmer ocean temperatures, a direct consequence of climate change, supercharge these atmospheric rivers, allowing them to carry exponentially more moisture than historically observed. Altered jet stream patterns then steer these incredibly potent moisture bombs directly at California with alarming and increasing frequency. What we are witnessing isn't a freak accident, an isolated anomaly. It is the stark new normal in a global climate system profoundly thrown out of balance by human activity. This isn't just about California. It's a microcosm of a planetary crisis, demonstrating how localized extremes are part of a larger, interconnected global phenomenon. The psychological impact on residents cannot and must not be overstated. Many families in the current evacuation zones have already endured the profound trauma of fleeing life-threatening wildfires, often losing everything they owned. Now, they face the existential terror of flooding from the very rain they once desperately prayed for during the brutal drought years. This emotional whiplash, from fire to flood, from drought to deluge, takes an immeasurable toll on mental health, community resilience, and the very fabric of social cohesion. The repeated displacement, the constant threat, and the uncertainty of what the next season will bring erode a sense of safety and permanence. As Wednesday dawned, the monstrous storm showed no discernible signs of weakening.
On-ramp was flooded.
If anything, meteorologists warned, the absolute worst was still to come. Rainfall rates in some mountain areas exceeded 2 inches per hour, creating instant, raging waterfalls where none had ever existed before. Urban storm drains, meticulously designed for normal rainfall events, became utterly overwhelmed within mere minutes, their capacity proving tragically insufficient against such an onslaught. Streets, once thoroughfares for commerce and life, transformed into raging torrents, carrying cars, dumpsters, and a horrifying array of debris like forgotten toys. Emergency services report being comprehensively overwhelmed with calls for help, their resources stretched to breaking point. Swiftwater rescue teams, operating under incredibly perilous conditions, work frantically, heroically to reach stranded residents, but the conditions on the ground often render rescue attempts themselves life-threatening for the rescuers. The heartbreaking reality is stark and undeniable. Help simply cannot reach everyone who desperately needs it. Residents trapped in flood zones are forced to make agonizing life-or-death decisions about when to evacuate, often with incomplete information and in the face of rapidly changing, terrifying conditions. Social media platforms, once tools for connection, now fill with desperate pleas for help and shocking, visceral videos of the destruction. Cars disappear beneath relentless mud flows, swallowed whole. Homes slide off their foundations, their structural integrity compromised beyond repair. Massive boulders, loosened by the incessant rain, crash down hillsides into unsuspecting neighborhoods. Each image and video tells a harrowing story of lives forever changed in mere moments, a visual testament to nature's brutal, indifferent power. The long-term implications of this disaster stretch far beyond this week's immediate emergency. Flood damage doesn't simply dry up and disappear without a trace. Homes saturated with contaminated water often become total losses, deemed uninhabitable. Mold growth creates insidious health hazards that can last for months or even years, poisoning the very air residents breathe. Foundation damage, often subtle, may not appear immediately but can render entire structures unsafe, requiring demolition. Many residents who evacuate for a few days will tragically discover they cannot return home for months, if ever, their lives uprooted indefinitely. Transportation infrastructure faces years, potentially decades, of repairs and rebuilding. Major highways undermined by catastrophic flooding may require complete reconstruction, disrupting commerce and daily life for an unforeseeable future. Mountain roads, precariously carved into unstable slopes, could remain closed indefinitely, severing communities and critical supply lines. The very geography of some areas is being permanently altered as entire hillsides collapse and rivers carve new, destructive channels, reshaping the landscape in a violent, permanent manner. This Christmas catastrophe serves as a harsh, unforgiving reminder that nature operates on its own implacable schedule, utterly indifferent to human plans, traditions, and celebrations. The atmospheric river cares nothing for holiday travel. Burned scars do not pause their deadly effects for family gatherings. The compound disasters now regularly striking California demand a fundamental, urgent rethinking of how we build, how we plan, and, crucially, how we live with increasingly extreme weather in an era of undeniable climate change. This demands significant investment in resilient infrastructure and adaptive urban planning, moving beyond merely reactive measures. As this storm continues its devastating assault through Thursday, millions of Californians face a holiday season unlike any other in living memory. Instead of joy and celebration, they confront profound fear and soul-crushing uncertainty. Instead of gathering with cherished loved ones, they flee for their very lives, often separated, often alone. Instead of Christmas peace, they endure nature's unbridled violence. The indelible images of Los Angeles submerged in mud, of homes shattered, will haunt long after the waters finally recede, serving as a stark, permanent reminder of our profound vulnerability in the face of Earth's rapidly changing climate. Recovery will not be swift. It will take months, even years of concerted effort and immense resources. But for now, in these critical, harrowing hours, survival remains the singular, paramount goal. As brave rescue teams work tirelessly through the long night and terrified families huddle in emergency shelters, California endures another brutal chapter in its escalating, existential battle with extreme weather. This Christmas storm, tragically, won't be the last. The patterns are terrifyingly
and
clear.
conducted
The
intermittent
warnings
traffic
have been
releases while
unequivocally
checking on
issued,
disabled
and the
vehicles.
future
By
promises
about
only
7
more
p.m.,
intense,
2 northbound
complex,
lanes
and
had
frequent challenges ahead, demanding a new paradigm of resilience and adaptation.